full stuff that you were going to do the intro. So, all right. Well, first off, thank you so much. I was sitting here earlier and watching the slides go by and thinking that I'm in front of the same group that Sarah Thomas is going to be speaking to in a little while. I can't compete with that, and I got to hear Lynn's compelling story up here. It's like, why am I even here? But I'll do my best. We'll try and have some fun. This is a little bit more of a working session, I'll be honest. This isn't what I don't do, what our team doesn't do, and Chuck, you can know this. We don't just pontificate from the front of the room. So we're going to be talking about some theories. I'm going to introduce really one theory. I don't have a lot of time with you guys, so we're really going to be talking about this one theory. You guys are going to be doing some things in the room. You guys are going to be working together a little bit on this too. So I want to make the case for this, right? So as I was thinking about this concept of elevating ourselves or elevating our people, this quote came to mind when I was thinking about this, and it's a small team of A+ players can run circles around a large group or a large team of B or C players. And I really started thinking about that and where that, how that concept fits in life too, right? Think about the military, think about our special forces. We have a massive army, but a lot of the work that's done before they even show up is done by very small groups of very committed A+ players that are going in and paving the way. The same thing holds true in business, right? So we're elevating ourselves, we're elevating our teams. I'm going to do my best to sort of mix this up a little bit, this conversation, so that you can either apply this concept to yourself, or if your primary role in your organization is managing a team or managing people, you can use these tools or these concepts to take back to elevate your team. That being said, I'm a firm believer that everybody can elevate themselves as well. But my guess is you guys wouldn't be here if you're already not A+ players, right? So my guess is that we probably don't have to work with you guys at all. So you might want to be thinking about people that are on your team. So what's the problem with this? What's the challenge that we run into as it relates to having folks, whether they're our folks or other people on our team or ourselves, that aren't operating at an A+ level or at an optimal level? So a couple of things stand out. One, what we see is a lack of understanding, and sorry about seeing the screen there. That was great time. You were like 5 minutes late, dude. We talked about this. You were supposed to do my walk-in music when I was coming up. All right. You got the closed music though, right? Yeah. All right. So sorry about the fact that it's a little hard to see, but what this is essentially saying is, if we don't understand, or our people don't understand exactly what the fit is, what we're supposed to be doing, we have a task problem. And we're not exactly sure what those tasks are that we're supposed to complete. We don't know what a good job looks like. We don't know what A+ looks like. People start filling the void, right? And people don't feel like they're making a difference in their job. They have no task significance. The second thing we see is people end up wasting time. They're not exactly sure what they should be doing. If they don't know what good looks like, if it hasn't been defined for them, they'll fill that space, they'll fill that time with something else. And it may not necessarily be what we want them doing. And then finally, team members find it difficult to develop those required skills. Their jobs aren't well defined, so the attributes of what well defined isn't clear. And then it becomes really hard to manage them as well, developing people. Who in here, who's responsible for developing people on their teams or in their organization? Show of hands. So 3/4 of the room, fair portion of the room. I have the same, my hand goes up too, I have the same thing. And one of the things that I run into in our organization is, as roles change or expand or aren't exactly as clear as they need to be. By the way, we spent an entire day in our office yesterday doing our quarterly planning session and redefining our roles and making sure that some of the things that we're going to be talking about today are in place for our organization. But if we don't have those roles really defined, and I'm not talking about just job description, right? Job descriptions are easy. That stuff's easy to understand. Everybody probably has one. But really getting down into the nuts and bolts of what a role is, what a position is, the exact attributes that shows what A+ is. If we don't have what those are for our people, it's really hard to manage, right? It's really hard to develop those people. Or if it's ourselves, if we're responsible for managing ourselves, and we're not exactly sure what those skills are, if it hasn't been defined for us, it's really hard to develop ourselves and how to manage ourselves. So my guess is that Well, let me ask. I'll ask the room again. And who has said something to themselves or in a conversation, and maybe a conversation that happens out here later, you know, when people ask, like, how are things going, how's the role, how's the job, you're met with something like, yeah, it's going pretty well. You know, busy. Who answers with busy? Right? And I mean, who's not busy? Why are we busy? What's going on that we're busy? Why are we busy? This is where, by the way, so Mika and Chuck know this about me. I've got a very strong and high need for approval. So one of the ways I get that met is by like response, by interaction. Because if I don't, I'll feel like I'm not doing a good job. And in which case I'll like end up back there in the corner sucking my thumb or something. And so keep me out of the corner and let's talk through this. All right. Thank you. Brother? Oh, I trust it from you, not him. I watched him earlier. I'm not so sure about this one. So why are we busy? What's going on? Why are we busy?
We're busy because we have
Clients.
employees and children, church.
Jamie.
We overextend ourselves.
Okay. Yeah? Wow. So why are you busy? What'd you say? Women? That never overextends.
Yeah.
We try not. We do the opposite of that.
Take on 2 or 3 people's jobs.
Taking on 2 or 3 people's jobs. Stuff has to get done. Our roles aren't clear, or our people's role isn't clear. And the things have to get done. The clients need to be responded to. The phone's blowing up. We've got tenants that have issues. Whatever it might be, we find ourselves, and I don't know if you've ever used the comment, like, which hat am I wearing today? Wear too many hats, right? That said, wear too many hats. That's what we're talking about here. And I want to talk about that for the next couple of minutes. And I didn't set this expectation with you up front. I probably should have done this. Everybody have something to write with by chance? Is that, and if not, you know, you guys probably have awesome memories. So you probably don't need to write this stuff. Oh my gosh, look at this. Where did they come from?
That's what Marnie in my company.
All right. Are you an ad specialties, ma'am? I mean, she literally pulled out like 27 pens. So if someone needs a pen, yeah. Is this an industry partner contract? So, yeah, feeding folks short pens. So you will need something right with, because we're going to walk through a couple things. So now here's the stage. I'm going to set the stage for this. We're going to talk about primary functions. And before you can actually start breaking down what the attributes are, very specific attributes of a role, we need to figure out first what the primary functions for that role is, or what they are. And the problem that this leads to, again, if we don't have this kind of thing outlined for every position, every role in our organization, or for ourselves, we end up wearing too damn many hats, right? And we start marching towards the wrong thing, and things don't get done. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'll let you guys decide if this is something that you're doing for yourselves, for your role, or if you're doing it for a role inside your organization that you have responsibility for. So I'll leave it up to you guys. But what I'd like you to do is write down, or at least think about it. You don't have anything to write with, or if you didn't get one of the 27 pens that the ladies have. Or if you're smart, put it on your phone. Is that what you're doing? You're texting back and forth?
Yes.
What I'd like you to do for that role, your role, or for someone in your organization's role that you want to work on, that you wish was a little bit more, that B player role in your organization that you want to elevate, write down what the what the three primary functions for that role is. Now, let me give you an example. I wrote down a couple of things here to set the stage for this a little bit. The 3 primary functions that you see on the screen, these are mine, for my organization. Now, oh, by the way, I didn't introduce Leah, by the way. Leah, everybody turn around, wave at Leah. Leah Brave.
Hi.
Leah's our marketing director. She's here helping. We're filming a little bit for some other reasons. Not you guys. We don't need to do any disclaimers. It's more for me. But Leah knows this, that I do a million things in our organization. I'm responsible for a lot of different things. But one of the things that I had to do in the last 5 or 6 years, as we got bigger as an organization, brought in more people, the roles inside the organization need to be defined better, mine included, because I found myself doing too many things. I was wearing too many hats, and nothing was getting done well. Everything was getting done, but nothing was getting done really well. So what I had to do was figure out what my top 3 are. What are the 3 things that take precedence over everything else? So in the course of the day, all the things that I'm presented with doing, I measure it against these three primary functions. And if the thing that I'm tasked to do at that moment, or that I'm pulled into, or that fire that comes up, doesn't relate to one of these three things, it gets prioritized as such. Either somebody else does it, I find somebody else to do it, I delegate it, or it doesn't get done, it's not important, or it doesn't get done that day, that minute. So these three primary functions, my first thing, and by the way, this is in order, and this is the order in which I make my decisions. My first primary function in my role is managing the numbers. And what that means is it's not accountant CFO work, it's making sure that my team is hitting their numbers. There's behaviors that have to get done over the course of the day. There are budgets that need to be completed and hit. Right? My job is to make sure that I understand the numbers and manage the numbers for our organization better than anybody else, my team included. So that's the primary function number one. Primary function number two, managing the lead gen. Right? The lead generation, all of the stuff that we do that provides revenue for the business. Some of that's marketing, which Leah runs for me. But I'm still responsible for making sure that stuff happens. Lead gen as far as it relates to referral business with our existing client base, making sure our clients are happy. That kind of stuff. That's all lead generation in my world. And finally, my third primary function is managing the resources, right? I'm responsible for all of the resources, and our organization has people. That's all we are. We're a business consulting firm. So our main resource is people. So I'm responsible to make sure we have the right people, the right number of people, the right skill sets, all of those things. So those are my three. What are your three? Did you guys get it? This sometimes isn't easy. If it's easy, then I'm really proud of it, because this was not easy for me. So I saw a nod here, and it was you, Jesse. Yeah, what are your top three? You mind sharing?
Sure. Keep my number one client happy.
Okay, just one client.
No, it's a group.
Okay, got it.
Which
Okay.
share it's all my employees.
I love that. Okay, good. So employee happiness.
Number two is just manage everyone else's expectations.
Okay, managing expectations for everyone in the organization and out, I'm assuming. Yep.
Number three, pacify everyone I work for.
Pacify. Did you guys hear that? Pacify everyone he works for. I'll give you one example.
Make sure that I communicate to our ownership what everybody's doing and how we're going to do it, and action plans and financial plans, and just making sure that they feel good about what we're doing.
Jesse, is there anything that happened today? Right, it's 4:10. So days on the backside of the day, so most of the day's gone. As you look back over today, was there anything that happened today that you did or are doing at the moment that doesn't fit into those top three? And while he's thinking, I want you guys to be thinking the same thing.
Other than going to a pre-K field trip.
That's pacification. Yeah, that's pacification of somebody. Yeah.
I actually worked today, even while I was doing that.
You sound surprised. You guys hear like I even worked there. Yeah. Did anybody, who's struggling with their top three? Who doesn't have their top three yet? We'll help you. Is it Armani?
Yeah.
Armani, what do you do? Run a flooring company, Lux, right? Okay, got it. So what's your top three? Or what do you think your top three are so far? How many do you have?
I haven't had enough time to think, so I actually don't know.
You're a processor. All right, so you're gonna have to go away on this. All right. Give me one. What do you think your one top primary function is?
Yes.
Too broad.
Pay the bills.
Okay? How do you pay the bills? So literally pay the bills. You're talking about literally writing checks. You don't mean like go get money to pay the bills.
No.
Okay, so you have plenty of money. You don't need any more. Anybody not doing business with Lux because start now. Pay the bill. So
My rule's vague, so I can't hear.
okay, well, so this may be an exercise that may be beneficial.
Keep me up all night.
Oh, let's not do that. Let's fix it over drinks. And I do know that I'm standing between you and cocktails, so I promise we will be done by 7. So here's the thing, guys, and I don't want to spend a ton of time because there's more work that we have to do. Understand what your top three are, right? And this may take some time, and what's going to happen, and my guess is when when I asked him that question, when I asked you guys that question, is there anything that you, as you have your top three now, is there anything as you examine your day, or your days, or your week, were there things that you were doing that didn't fit into that top three? Here's what is, if it didn't happen in the moment, here's what's going to start happening to you. As you start examining this, you'll start making, I don't know, excuses, I can't think of the right word, but you'll justify, you'll spin the thing that you're doing, that thing that you're tasked with at this moment, you'll find a way to jam it into your top three, right? And we've got to be careful, we've got to have the discipline, and that may be right, but I really suggest that you examine that, right? I'll give you an example in my world, right? So managing the numbers is pretty broad, so I have to define that. And one of the things that happens to me all the time is my team will come to my office, and we have most of our offices are glass, right? So everything you can see, there's no door, you have to kind of look, you just kind of, I'm in there, right? They know I'm there, right? So what I'm doing, if I'm locked down, I've got my calendar, I'm happy to show you guys my calendar. My calendar's blocked out with everything pretty much down in a minute. Leah and I, telling the truth, pretty much down in a minute. Everything on my calendar's blocked out with things I have to do that day. And we'll make fun of Leah because she's in the room. So, Leah will come around the corner and she'll look in my office and see if I'm in there. And she'll just kind of stand there. And my first move is, and I see, I probably shouldn't be saying this out loud, but I see them, I can see them in my periphery, but I'm trying to not make eye contact, right? So I'm like, I know they're there, maybe if I don't look, they'll go away. Because what I'm really doing is looking at my calendar, I know Leah's got a marketing question, and I'm not in marketing time right now. I'm managing the numbers, but then I start processing. What she may have for me is something that has something to do with that. So you know what, Leah, get into it, what is it? And now I have this problem. And my problem is I'm an I got it person. Do you know what I mean by I got it people? Or probably not you guys are awesome. But maybe those people that are on your team, you've got some of these folks in your organization, whether I got it people. Meaning everything that pops up, they got it. They'll go do something about that with complete disregard for what their top three primary functions are. And this can be deadly to an organization, especially small organizations. Again, perfect example, I'll use me, we'll make fun of me, we'll make fun of your team. But right outside that same office, glass office, is our printer copier thing, right? Somebody will walk up and I'll start seeing them beating on it, pushing buttons, and it's obviously not working for them. Whatever's happening, it's not working correctly. And I can be on a timeline, working on one of my top three things, but I'm an I got it guy at my core. What do? I stop whatever I'm doing, I jump up and I go out and say, Leah, what's going on? Let me help you. And I can't help it, but I'm working really hard on that because nowhere on there does IT person or printer copier repair person fall into my top three. That's the discipline thing we're talking about. So as you're exploring these top three things, and as you're exploring and breaking down your day, and as you start making some decisions about either your role and your primary functions or the people that you're trying to elevate from B players to A players, make sure that they're staying disciplined and focused on what their top three things are. That make sense? This is not easy. You're gonna have to fight this. You're gonna have to fight this battle of prioritizing, right? Because Armani is a perfect example. I gotta get things done. I get things done. That's my job. If that's your mindset, and yeah, right, you got it. If that's your mindset, that's good to a degree, right? Because if that thing that you're trying to get done, somebody else could do, that maybe fits their primary functions better and allows you to go pay the bills on time, or whatever primary function 2 or whatever primary function 3 is, the business probably moves faster, right? So if everybody in the organization knows what their top 3 is, and they're picking that, and they're deciding what they're doing today based on those things, we're gonna move faster. All right, so now that we understand what our top 3 primary functions are for that role, that person that we're trying, I actually have to correct myself. And as we're going through the rest of this conversation, we actually have to remove the person from the conversation here. I was guilty of it, I just did it, so I'm going to retract that. We now have to switch from a person that we're trying to elevate to a role now that we're trying to elevate. Now, sure, we have people, and we have to consider people in this role, but for the next 15, 20 minutes or so that we're going to be working on the next stage, we have to remove the people, remove the names, and only focus on the role. Does that make sense? Because the next thing we're going to do is ultimately build out. Anybody know, and I'm looking around the room, I may be safe here. We'll see. I use this analogy a lot, and I'm not sure that this will hit the right age mark here or not. Anybody familiar? I know Chuck is. Chuck's like old as dirt. Anybody familiar with $6 Million Man, Lee Majors?
Yeah.
Right? Who's got that? Me? You got it. You got nothing on this,
I
right?
was there too.
But you don't know that one?
I know him very well.
Oh, do you? Okay, so dude, love this show. Who's familiar with the show? Yeah? Chuck, what was the show? What happened? We'll give for the folks that are less than 40 in the room.
That was Mr. Lee Major.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was in a bad plane crash,
Yeah.
and he lost an arm, a leg, and some eyes, and ears, and they gave him all these bionic parts. All $6 million.
Yeah. And this was in like 81 or something, right? So whatever.
78.
Was it really?
Yeah.
All right. Well, whatever. So you put that in today's dollars, and it's probably the $20 million. But whatever. That's the concept I want you to keep in mind for this next few minutes. So we have the opportunity now for this role. Be so mad that I'm walking around. I walk. That's what I do. For this role, remove the names. And if it's your role, remove your name as best you can. And think about what the bionic person would be for that role. What are the very specific attributes that we're looking for? And I apologize. Some of you, not everybody has, so we threw some samples of a really simple document out on the chairs. And there's really cool tools around this, and I'm happy to send this, like the really cool tools to you. But this is a tool that we use when we're building out the very specific attributes for a role. And the process that we do is called search model. It's an acronym. It stands for skills, experience, attitude, results, cognitive ability, and habits. So you don't need to necessarily remember that now. I think most of this outlined on that piece of paper. And by the way, one, because we didn't have enough, and we ran out. And mainly because we ran out, because when I grabbed them when I was leaving the office today, I looked at them and realized it's not what I wanted. They're too small. You can't really write on these. Wasn't happy about that. We're going to send you, everybody, if you raise your hand, you talk to myself, or you talk to Leah, give us a business card, or give us your email address. We'll email you. We're going to email you a couple of things. We'll email you all the really cool tools, the stuff that looks way better than this. But we'll email you this spreadsheet so that you can use it yourself. So we'll supply all those things. There's actually some other gifts that we want to give you guys too for hanging out with us for a little while. So make sure that before we get out of here that you, if you're so inclined, that you give me your information, or go see Leah and give her your information, and we'll send you a bunch of really cool stuff. More on this and a couple of offers for some other things that we want to give you. But here's what we're going to do for this role that you want to elevate from a B player to an A player. Now that we know what their three primary functions are, we're going to start breaking down the very specific attributes inside each of these components for that primary function. So for example, and I'll stop picking on Armani for a second. Who else was working on another role, not themselves, but another role in their organization? Who's working on that? Or everybody working on themselves? Everybody's working on themselves? Really? All right, your name covered, your name text covered. Jennifer, can you give me one of your primary functions?
Build a book of business.
Build a book of business. Jennifer, what's your role with your organization?
I'm a security consultant, so design security systems.
Okay, design security systems. Primary function one was build a book of business, which means go out and find new clients. Fair? Okay. So business development may be a broader term to define that. Fair? Okay. So Jennifer, what are some of the, so if you imagine, there's a laser on this thing? I like lasers. Boom, there you go. Oh, it's green. So if you imagine for a second, I know it's really hard to see, and I know it's even hard to see on your sheet, and I apologize for that. But if you look in this box, it says PF1, primary function 1. So let's imagine for a second that this was, what was it again, say Jennifer? The exact terminology you used?
Build book of business.
Build a book of business. Primary function number one for this role, for security consultant. Primary function number one is build a book of business. What are the very specific skills that are required by the bionic security consultant? What are some of the skills that would exist? Again, you've got to remove Jennifer from this, because I'm sure you are the bionic person, and maybe you are the mom. But we've got to define this for ourselves and for other people. So what are some of the specific skills that exist for that primary function? I'm going to cheat and throw some things up here in a second. Go ahead.
Networking.
Networking. Okay?
Marketing.
Okay? We're going to have to start refining these a little bit. They're a little bit broad, but go ahead, keep on.
Closing deals.
Okay, good. I like that. Closing deals. Let's back up for a second. So skill set. And just mind if I pick a little bit?
Go ahead.
Because this is, as you're looking at this, the attributes that you are now thinking about for your roles, you should be thinking the same way. Networking. Is networking a skill?
I think so.
How do I know what an A-player networker when I see one? And that's help Jennifer. But Jennifer first, but this is feedback time. What's an A-plus networker? Connected. What else?
Communicator.
Effective communicator, engaging. Memory. I like that. Follow up. So what's up on the screen right now, and it's a little tough to see. Now my eyes aren't so good, so maybe you guys can see it better than I can. All right, let me tell you what some of these words are. So we use a tool, and again, this is something else that I'm happy to send you guys. We use a tool called the Divine Inventory. And it's the evaluation. You guys have probably, or you've had your people take some version of this. This is a behavioral evaluation. And what it does is it measures 33 behaviors that when you put these behaviors together in certain ways, you get competencies. Competencies that support things like being good at networking. So I like the idea that we say networking is a skill that you need to be good at. But what I would rather see is what are the very specific attributes inside being a good networker? Things like an effective communicator, somebody that knows how to communicate, somebody that may be generally positive. So, for example, we see some things like affiliation, authority relationships, ego, right? My guess is that you guys have seen people with really low egos at networking events. Have you seen that? What's that look like? Right, they're the ones that are. Right, we're over here. You guys are out there meeting people, right, getting it done. You got the low ego person that's over here because they're afraid to get in that conversation. Now, it may be a skill set thing, maybe a self-esteem thing. If they're way over here doing this, right, and then they do the fake phone call, you see that. You don't know who's on the phone. Right, they get a call and they leave the room. You've seen that. You guys have never done that. But you've seen it. So ego might be one of the things that we would want to measure as it relates to an attitude or a skill, right? Communication, definitely a skill. Networking, I would suggest, may fall into the experience bucket. So let's talk about what these things are a little bit, right? Skills, just what you might think. Somebody's a good communicator. Somebody that, I like closing, right? I like closing because people, again, not you guys are awesome. But I talk to a lot of people, we talk to a lot of people, and we see a lot of what we call professional visitors in your environment. You know what I mean by professional visitors? Right? They've got their list of people that they need to go see. They've got their milk run type process that they go through. And they're really great at being professional visitors. And people love them, right? They love meeting with them, but nothing ever gets done. They don't actually get anything done. They don't get a referral. They don't get more business. They don't get that next deal. So there's a difference between being a professional visitor and actually closing and moving things forward. So I love closing as a skill. Experience may be the bucket where we would put something like networking events. Right? We need people that are good and are used to the experience of being in networking environments. Jennifer, what else do you have as down for that primary function? What are you thinking from a skill set standpoint?
Build a book of business.
Yeah. Yeah, being free, again, a little hard to see, the attitude column. Right? So if the bionic security consultant needs to have an attitude of positivity for success, being an A-plus player, we're going to put positive in the attitude column. Make sense? All right. Next column over, result. What are the results that we're looking for? The bionic security consultant, Jennifer, what kind of results does this person produce? And it doesn't have to necessarily be tied to revenue or money. It could be anything. What are some of the results?
Happy clients.
Happy clients, retention. And it can be measured. By the way, the stuff that we want to put on here are things that need to be measured. We have to be able to measure them somehow. It is hard to measure positivity. I get that. Attitude's a little tougher to measure. Results are easier to measure. So retention is something that we may want to measure. Referrals that are given by our existing client base is probably a really great way to measure if this person, the security consultant, is an A-plus player as it relates to this. Any other results? What are some other results? I'm putting you on the spot, I get it. You can look at me, like give me the eyes, like go away, pick on somebody else.
No.
Okay.
Hitting quota.
Hitting quota, yeah. Meeting or exceeding targets, right? By the way, that can be measured. Let's move over to the next column, cognitive ability. So this means different things to different people, but I'll tell you what I think it means and how we use it. And by the way, I or anybody on my team will never stand in front of you guys and anybody that we work with, and I think Chuck and Dave, you can attest to this, we've been working together, we were talking about this earlier, like 10 years, 9, 10 years. Nobody on my team will ever stand in front of you and tell you to do something that we don't do. That it's a value system in our world. We use this, we use it every day. So cognitive ability or cognitive skills for us is the think on your feet kind of stuff. In the position or in this primary function that you're outlining, what are the think on your feet things that need to be in there? And I'm actually going to jump ahead to something else here. Again, a little tough to see, but, and we're lucky, Jennifer, because this is actually a screenshot of our search model for our business developer position, for our consultant position. Business development as our primary function number 1. So here are some of the things that we have. It's tough to see. Defining a rapport at the CEO level. We want to make sure that our team in this role, in this primary function, can go in and have a conversation with leadership at the highest level, right? And have that skill around it. Personal presence for us, do they show up well? Right? Do they have good self-awareness? Do they have good timing in conversations? Those kind of things. Engaging, somebody mentioned that earlier when we were talking about skills, an important one for us. Questioning, listening. You need to be able to ask really good questions. You need to be able to listen. Logical. And prospecting through networking, right? So those are skills that we have there as well. Experience, selling at many different levels of the organization is important for us because depending on the size of the organization, we may not be at the CEO level. We may not need the CEO level. We find this in a lot of your worlds. Right? The CEO of some of the organizations that we work with in your space isn't even here. They're somewhere else. And the person that makes decisions about what we do is right in front of us. They may not be the CEO. But depending on how we're going about doing this business development function, we may need to sell at different levels of the organization. Startup environment, limited structure. We're a small organization. That doesn't fit for everybody. They may not be comfortable with that. So it's important that that's an experience that people have. Attitude, passionate about data. Team, not self. We're big on that. So you can get some of the examples of some of this stuff. Results, achieving financial goals. Meeting, exceeding targets we were talking about. Cognitive ability. These are some of those think on your feet kind of things that in this role, with this primary function, are important. Oh, jeez. There we go. Working in an unstructured environment. We get the objection, sales are fine. One of the things that we do, a lot of our business developers do a lot of work in, we do a lot of sales type of training and process development. One of the objections that we get a lot from people are, yeah, we're good. Our sales are fine. Like our money. We got all the money we need. What do we need? Sales are fine. So we've got to be able to deal with that objection, right? That's one of the things that we'll test for. They have no money. We can't afford it. Right? So we've got to be able to deal with that. My business developers have to be able to deal with those objections. And finally, habits. So for the primary functions that you have down, what are the habits that A players would display? Right? So some of the ones that we have, consistent prospecting behaviors, number of meetings set, These are behaviors and habits that have to exist all the time. Activity, meaning they just have to be grinders. They constantly want to get stuff done. Planning and working that plan. So, what I'd like you to do is take 2 minutes and fill out, just for one of your primary functions, some skills, a couple of experiences, a couple of attitude pieces, a couple of results, and a couple of habits. In 2 minutes or less. Go ahead. Any paper? Do you need some? There you go. And if not, you know, just write it on a piece of paper. I'm sorry everybody doesn't have this, but you can just jot this down. Here's what, anybody need one here? Good, good. It's tough to see, but I'll put this back up there in case you guys want to steal any of these. If you guys can read that. Yeah. She told me to go to 4:45 since we started late. All right, here's what I'd like you to do. Turn to the person sitting next to you, unless you find them offensive. Turn to the person next to you, and if you do find them offensive, go find somebody that you find oddly attractive and go work with them. But take a minute or two and walk through, just really quickly, the primary function, the skills, the experiences, the attitude, the results, the cognitive abilities, and the habits that you wrote for that primary function. Partner, what your job is for this next 30 seconds or so that your partner's reading these, is to make sure that you understand what it is. You need to be able to understand it. Even if you don't know them or don't know what that role is, it's important that you understand it because these have to be easy to understand. They have to be replicable. Because if they're not, if this is in any way confusing, we're going to be dealing with those same issues that we were dealing with earlier, not being clear on what the role is, right? So be able to explain it, partner challenge it. If you don't think it's clear, ask them what they mean by that. Maybe help them refine it, and then switch. So do that in about a minute or less. Go ahead. There should be a lot of talking. Go ahead. All right, 30 seconds, start wrapping them up.
Can we just keep it?
All right, let's bring it back. Sorry, I hate interrupting. When we get back to this need for approval thing, I'd rather you guys now talk to me than each other. So I gotta bring it back. Or I'll be in the corner sucking my thumb again. All right, so, Stacy, right? Stacy? Stacy. mind sharing what yours were? What did you guys talk about?
Well, I talked about creating and managing marketing plans
Okay,
and.
as the primary function.
Correct.
Okay.
correct. And in terms of skills, analytical ability,
Okay,
okay? And in terms of experience, I need to have knowledge of all the various marketing channels that exist. And attitude, I need to be very optimistic. You know, what the
you mean
situation
this person is, not you, this
That-
person.
It's always about me.
I-
Yeah, you're right. That person. And in terms of result, I'm looking for she, he, her, whatever, is looking for a particular occupancy goal they're trying to achieve. Cognitive ability, awareness, not just of what's going on internally, but externally as well. And habits, just reevaluating because things change. Looking at them again.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. That was good. It was great. Yeah. You want the clicker?
It's green. If it was blue, I'd take it.
I hate you.
I'm just saying.
Blue's my color too. Yeah, I like that. I don't like red. Red things, I don't like. Red numbers, red teams. Yeah. All right. So I got to start wrapping this up because again, I know I'm standing in front of you with some cocktails. So let's talk about how to use this stuff, right? So let's imagine for a second. I know everybody, literally everybody in here, and I think that may be the first time that we walk through a process like this where everybody's working on themselves with that. I think it's great. But how to use this and how to use it with a team. So what you'll see is, and for those of you that can see it on your page too, there's a little column, there's a column just to the right of those attributes that you wrote down. So there's really three ways to use this tool, or it fits into three areas. One is from a hiring and onboarding standpoint, right? So imagine for a second that you're trying to build out for a position. You've got a whole bunch of property managers that you need to bring in. You just added a whole bunch of properties, you need to bring a bunch of property managers. You take a search model against that role. Build a search model level of a bionic property manager. The very specific skills, experiences, attitude, results, cognitive abilities, and habits. You list that out. You get the three primary functions first, but then you list out all of those attributes, right? So what happens then is if you're using this from a hiring standpoint, every time you're interviewing, every time you're talking to someone about that role or interviewing for that role, you have a blank search model. Now again, this is just for one primary function. Imagine this has all three built out. You would have that search model in front of you so that as you're interviewing that person, you're giving them a score. As you're interviewing them, everybody else in your organization that's interviewing that person is doing the same thing, their own sheet. Right? They're giving them a score. And I'll walk you through these scores. The score is really simple. It's a 1, it's a 2, or a 3. 1 is this person in this role doesn't have that skill or that attribute. Sorry, not skill, that attribute. It could be a skill, experience, an attitude, result, capability, have it. They don't have it, and they may never have it. It just doesn't appear, based on everything that we're seeing, as something that they, with training, with investment, whatever, they're probably not likely to have it. That's a 1. This will get the points. It's great. Say, put your name on this. You still get points for it. But it's a 1. A 2 is they don't have it right now, or they don't display that attribute all of the time. But with some effort, they can. I believe that this person can display that specific attribute, that skill, that experience, and so on and so forth. Make sense? And a 3 is they have it, they display it, and they've got it on mark. Right? So what happens then is, on the bottom of your sheet, you total this up. Depending on how many attributes that you have, the max score is those number of attributes times 3, right? I'm not very good at math, but even I can figure that one out. And then you total. And in our world, everybody can do this differently, but in our world, when we're interviewing for any position in our organization, we're matching that interview up against the search model. And if they land at anything less than 70%, the candidacy is over. We're very nice about it, but we don't move forward with them because at that point we just believe that there's the rock to move is too far. So we just move on. So 70 plus, great. Then we look at to make sure that those are things that are trainable or installable. So that's how you can use this search model from a hiring standpoint, not necessarily what we're in here talking about today. So let's imagine now that this person is hired, or you're evaluating yourselves, or evaluating your team and moving those B players to A players. You match them up against the search model. Match yourselves up against the search model. Give yourself a score, 1, 2, or 3. in each of these attributes. It's actually nice when somebody else is doing this for you. So actually how we do it, and Leah can attest, Leah has a search model. I might be interested in yours because I might be able to steal Stacy some of your stuff, or Leah's, what we should compare notes. I have Leah fill out her search model on a quarterly basis. She fills out her search model. She scores herself, 1, 2, or 3. The direct supervisor, whoever's primarily responsible for that person, also fills out that search model. Let's imagine for a second, I'm very fortunate that Leah is not a B player, she's an A player. Let's imagine for a second that my Leah was a B player. And I score her differently than she scores herself. We sit down and talk about what those differences are. We now build a plan to close those gaps where she thought she might be a little bit stronger, where she may have given herself a 2 or a 3, and I may have given her a 2 or a 1. We build a plan for what needs to be done in whatever next period of time we're talking about to develop those attributes. Does that make sense? So again, I'm building the bionic person, the Lee Majors of whatever that role is. They don't exist. It's not real. It really wasn't a $6 million man. It's a cool idea. He's not yet. I don't think there is. There may be a little later, but at least right now I don't think there is. So it doesn't exist. So perfect doesn't exist here. Our job is to get as close to perfect, or at least show progress from B to A. Does that make sense? So again, as you're evaluating yourself, it's a little tougher to do that. It's certainly easier when you're evaluating somebody else. But you may want to have somebody else evaluate you. Hand them your search model and walk them through what those attributes are. And ask them, maybe it's a peer. Ask them to evaluate you. The problem is, if I go back to the very beginning, what we were talking about, the problem is people don't know what good looks like. The end result of building out a search model for a particular role, yours or anyone else's, should be what perfect is. Meaning, a 3 in every one of those boxes is perfect. If people know what perfect is, if they know what they're working toward, they can actually see it. Even though they may not be perfect now, they know what it looks like. We can put process in place, we can put training in place, we can put coaching in place, we can go get education if that's what it is. We can go find somebody to help us build that thing. But we have to know what perfect is to fill that void. That's what the search model ultimately ends up doing. Does that make sense? So this becomes your roadmap, your path to being the bionic role. I said I'd hit 4:45. It's 4:45, so I've got to start wrapping up. A couple of things. One, I'll reiterate. Understand what your 3 primary functions are. And if you need help with this, go back to the office, go work with somebody to figure out what are the 3 primary functions that should prioritize everything that you do in your business. That's step 1. You've got to get that down. Again, it's not the only 3 things that you do. You can't take this so literally that if, taking out the trash is part of your job, and it's not part that doesn't fall into the top 3, that the trash never gets taken out. It's not what I mean. You can't take it that literally. What I do mean, though, is the trash doesn't get taken out until the top 3 things are done. I prioritize my list that way. So figure out what your top 3 primary functions are. And figure out what the top 3 primary functions are for everybody in the organization. It will make things easier. It will make things, it's easier to manage. It's easier to manage yourselves. Once you have the primary functions down, spend some time figuring out what the exact attributes are for each of those 3 primary functions, build out that search model, build out that perfect person for that role, and then measure. Someone once said, I don't know who it was, but what gets measured gets done. This is how you do that, right? This closes the void that exists in a particular role or what good looks like. Guys, I'm sticking around. We're not going anywhere. Grab me, grab Leah. Make sure you say, give me the stuff, because the slides you had sucked, Jason. And we'll send you, and you can shoot me a text or that's my cell, that's my email address. I'm happy to give you a card too. But hit us with a message, or tell me right now, or tell Leah right now, and we'll get you a whole bunch of stuff. We'll send you over better forms, the e-forms of the stuff to use, the solid copies. We'll send you some materials. Hang on. We'll send you the sort of the supporting material for what the search model process is, which will explain it way better than I can in 35, 40 minutes. Happy to send you all of that stuff. And we'll also send you a couple of things. We have a white paper that we put together on this type of stuff, elevating yourself, elevating your key players. What's it called, Leah? Do you remember what I'm talking about? the key.
The 6 keys to success?
Yeah, 6
Something.
keys to success, I think is what it's called. So we were a white paper on this. Happy to give that to you. And we have an event that Nika just loves every year, a goal setting mastery session. That because I now consider you guys sort of friends and family, we're offering that at our client. We're considering you guys clients. So we're offering that at our client rate. So if you guys in December feel like come up and hang out in Baltimore, to do it in Baltimore. We're based in Baltimore, we have an office in Rockville, but home for us is Baltimore. So if you guys want to find yourself in Baltimore working with a whole bunch of people that really want to be A players, there's an event that we have coming up in December that you'll leave that event. If not an A player, you'll leave that event knowing how to become an A player. You agree? Yeah. All right.
It helped his experience.
Yeah, and listen, help him. Yeah.
We know.
Oh, you know Jason? Yeah. He's a nightmare. If we can fix him. I'm kidding. Do not repeat that. Erase the video. All right, guys, I gotta let you go. Thank you so much. I'm not going anywhere. We can continue the conversation in the happy hour, which is that way.
So you'll actually go out of this room and walk down the hallway around here to the back room.
And I'll see you guys out there. Thank you so much.